Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Amita Bhide from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and this is a module on contextualizing community participation as a part of the paper on community organization. Uh, Community participation is a extremely abused, I would say, used and abused concept. Um, and therefore, I think it is very necessary to look at the overall context and the debates which have shaped our understanding of participation. And we need to look at it historically and how historically ideas of state, civil society, change have actually evolved. And for community participation, community organization, participation is at the heart of this entire subject of community organization, and therefore we need to think about this concept in an extremely foundational kind of a manner, and hence this contextualization which is historicized. We begin to look at two aspects of this entire debate. And one of the first aspects that one needs to understand is that today, all over the world, basically, we are living in a society which is characterized by the formal presence of democracy. Uh, More than 90% of the countries in the world today have a formal system of democracy. And what is democracy? It was defined at a point in time as a government of people, by the people, for the people. And in that sense, democracy is a participatory system. And yet we live with the reality that people are increasingly alienated from this democratic system. This is reflected on one hand in the withdrawal from the electoral process itself and the reduced turnout at the polls. It is also reflected in the reducing membership of political organizations, right? So we need to think about how the state, the formal state, the democratic state, and the idea of democracy itself has evolved. We need to also understand in relation to participation how civil society, which is in some ways the non-state part and which has increasingly come to be associated with non-governmental organization, community organization, has come to be associated. So it is really like a ping pong. So when we begin to think of participation, on one hand is the state, on the other hand is civil society, and you have the society within which both these institutions are embedded, how they change and shift in relation to each other, how their roles change, and that is what is key to the evolving notion of participation per se. So in understanding this, I would actually begin to look at Carol Patman. And Carol Patman is somebody who advocated the idea of participatory democracy. Her question was basically that if you look at the overall notion of democracy, there are theorists like Schumpeter, for example, who gradually began to define democracy around the 1960s as basically a competition among elites. Okay, so which means that a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and thought of in these kind of participatory terms, had come down to be a contest between elites. And we see this actually operating in reality, right? So there are billionaires who participate in the overall political process. Voters perceive that they have no choices. Once elected, there is no control on the representatives. So then is democracy only about these formal procedures of democracy? And as a contest to that, basically Carol Patman advocated the entire idea of participatory democracy. She draws her ideas of participatory democracy to the work of Habermas. Habermas, in the European context, advocated this entire theory of communication. And where he basically says is that all the moral judgments which are being made for a general validity, for society or for community at large, can only be formed through a social process, and which is mediated by a open communication. That social process itself through which these decisions are made should have an institutional framework. It should have principles which ensure that the discourse, the discussion is autonomous, is independent, where people can speak freely. It should be open and where participants can be equal. It is through these kind of processes and this direct kind of participation that actually a real democracy can take effect. And Carol Patman basically begins to think about these kind of ideas. So the other space in which to look at this, because Carol Patman is thinking about how does one think of making the state process itself more democratic. There is another source, and that is basically which look at emancipatory movements, social movements, which is a space for social discourse but which is apart from the state. So one, you can think of participation in the realm of the state. The second is where you begin to think about participation as apart from the state, not necessarily apart as in completely devoid of the state, but basically where participation begins from the community itself. It begins with non-state traditions, okay, something which comes from earlier communitarian kind of forms, and this is very critical. For example, in the farming community in Maharashtra, there were many communities which had this kind of a form where if there are widows or if there are families who don't have able members within their family in order to actually do the plowing of a field, then other families in the village come together and help them to do that plowing. Okay? Now this is something, a form of a self-help which has not come from the state. It is something which is present in the social fabric of that community, which is something which has been evolved through tradition and the kind of bonds that people have. And this notion of participation is also a very important notion of participation. And this takes us to the point that basically you have the state as a necessary condition of democracy, but not a sufficient aspect of democracy. And you need to basically kind of deepen, if in order to deepen democracy, both the engagement of state with this has to be deepened, but at the same time these non-state traditions also need to be nurtured, right? And these take you to the entire sentiment to say that democratic settlement is not just representative democracy, but it is active democracy, direct democracy, in which people themselves take charge of their own development. There is a different notion now of democracy which I am going to talk about, and which is really in the context of the overall development discourse. So far we have discussed this in the context of decision making, operation of systems, societal systems, etc. Now in the after the Second World War, there was this entire discourse around development per se, and within which there was an international context of development, because President Harry Truman, for example, of the USA, took a lead in this, and he said that if there had to be lasting peace, then that peace couldn't be an absence of war. It basically had to be where the inequality between nations, where some nations were developed and some nations were underdeveloped, couldn't exist, and that developed nations had a duty towards the underdeveloped nations in order to kind of develop them, share with them the lessons and the fruits of development which the developed world was already enjoying. Now with this, what began kind of emerging is the overall context and narrative of development, where development was what the Western nations were. And the Western nations would give aid, give technologies, their experts in order to say how you could effect development in the underdeveloped countries. This was obviously a top-down approach, because the developed countries would give to the developing countries. Within the underdeveloped countries, then you would have the nation states, the top level governments, then determining what development was and bring it down to the grassroots. By the 1960s, then it began to be realized that this kind of a top-down version of development was not working. Okay? And therefore, there were new models of development which began to be proposed. So, prime among these are Miles Horton, who began to think about collective learning and self-organizing by people who wanted change. So, people should not become targets of change, but people would direct change. And this was a very, very important notion. Similarly, you had Julius Nyerere, who advocated that it is not development which would be targeted at people, but people would be at the center of development. So people would determine what development was, people would themselves bring about development, and other actors needed to be facilitators of that development. Similarly, you had Paulo Freire, and Paulo Freire went a step further, and where he said that you need to incorporate critical thinking in terms of seeing how change can actually be effected. So this is, in this kind of a developmental thinking, basically there was an entire, I would say, plethora of development programs then which began to be thought of by international development agencies. And this is where community participation really became a experimentation in the 1980s. In 1960s, when these new ideas of development also emerging from the bottom and keeping people at the center began to emerge, this began to take the form of experimentation with direct forms of participation. And what this meant was many of the multilateral agencies then started initiating participatory projects. I'll give you some examples of this participatory projects and how participation was being thought of. In the entire area of community health in the 1970s in India, Dr. Arole, a health practitioner trained in the US but Indian Dalit, came back to India and began to think about the entire gap between the actual state of health and development that villages around Ahmednagar in Maharashtra had, and the kind of health machinery. So health machinery which the national government had created was basically confined to hospitals, large teaching areas, and therefore for any small things also people had to either minimally go to the district centers or then move to the cities, and where you had extremely specialized hospitals which were then trying to cater for this. And there was this large gap of the whole kinds of problems which actually people were facing, for which then they were relying on extremely traditional methods. On the other hand, there was also this challenge that things and diseases which were easily preventable. What were the conditions for that? You had to have good, clean, safe water. You had to have good, clean, safe sanitation modes, drainage modes. You had to think of resources by which you could access healthcare and minimally do things like immunization, safe practices of delivery, and for this a system had to be set up. Dr. Arole thought of a system of community health workers. These community health workers were actually women who were deputed by villagers to participate in a program of preventive health. Initially, several villagers who were extremely skeptic of Dr. Arole's efforts deputed some of the most neglected women in the village because this was not going to be a very important work to their life. So often, Dalit women, widows, women who had hardly any voice in the entire village system were sent to Dr. Arole for training. The training that Dr. Arole gave was not only a training about health information, about how you could prevent diseases, but it was also a training which was an eye-opener and created self-esteem among these women. One of the exercises he carried out was giving a mirror to these women and them repeating sentences to themselves saying that I am so and so, I have XYZ qualities. Okay, and the exercises like these began and created a notion among the women that they are somebody, that they matter, that they had the confidence. And this was very critical because when they went back to their villages, they were confronted by an entire village where they were trying to educate people into saying immunize, and the response would be, but why? So they were so they are the change agent, bringing positive messages, whereas the village was still thinking of them as the lowermost in the entire hierarchy in the village. Okay? And it is this kind of a change which gradually started taking shape. What one sees in Jamkhed today is that a whole lot of village committees, people who are not only following safe delivery practices, and where now these women are actively organizing patients to take benefits of different governmental and the health system which has been created by Dr. Arole's system. Several diseases are being prevented. Sanitation systems have been set up in the village. Safe water systems have been, so they are now able to access the government resources. But for all of this, there is a huge chain of change which has actually happened from the bottom and which then accesses all the systems from the top. Now this kind of experiments, okay, in participation in 1980s, they began to expand, and then they took the form of really what I would say is a mainstreaming of participation. So in the 1980s, a whole lot of these development programs began experimenting with participation. Okay, so every program had to have a component of community participation, and different experiences and experiments with community participation. Then came you had forestry programs, you had health programs, water supply sanitation programs, slum upgradation programs, educational programs, all of which began to talk about local participation, forming user groups, having active democracy, representation in project planning, in implementation, in monitoring, so different components of overall project, but it was all projects. Okay, so understand this, कि earlier we were talking of participation as a part of state systems, larger systems. Now this is where development is thinking about project-based development. So you are not thinking of participation as a part of larger development per se, but different projects within which components of participation are being brought in. And this gradually resulted in the World Bank itself adopting a policy on participation. USAID, CEDA, all of these are bilateral, multilateral funding agencies, aid agencies. They also developed policies on participation. In some ways, this is like the pinnacle of developmentalization of participation. So what were the features of this developmentalization of participation? So one, your as I commented even earlier, forms of participation were linked to projects. Okay, so I think this is something which is very, very interesting and very important. This was linked to projects. One also sees that they largely continue to remain top down even now because they were project based, so there was aid coming from outside. The notions of what is development were coming from outside, and they all emphasized exogenous knowledge, expert led knowledge, right? In fact, there was a new breed of experts in participation, right? And the third thing was, and which was I think the more important aspect of this developmental notion of participation, which was that they had a focus on disadvantaged groups and how to bring them into the mainstream of development, and therefore delivery structures, program designs were basically being innovated upon to make them more participatory. And I would say that was the very interesting aspect of these kind of projects. In the 1990s then, basically one begins to see there is a change in this. And this change is at 2-3 different levels. At one, with processes of globalization, the role, the scale, the structure of the state has begun to change. The state, in some ways, its boundaries have become more diffuse. On one hand, so whether it is with respect to economic development and economic flows, communication flows, people flows. On the other hand, it has also, what we have seen is that the local has become a very, very important space. Now, the minute the local becomes an important space instead of the national, one basically sees that decentralized governance has emerged as one of the most important areas, and within which people's participation in governance has emerged as a key contemporary issue. And the focus, therefore, of this entire contemporary era is basically towards institutionalization of participatory practices. So if participatory practices were being incorporated in projects earlier, now the emphasis is on basically institutionalizing them at the local level in multiple ways. On the other hand, you are seeing that civil society is becoming globalized. Now, within these large kind of a trends, what I will talk about is in India, how are you seeing this present context? And what one sees here at one level is decentralization is being talked about. In 1991 and 1993, we had the 73rd and the 74th constitutional amendments, which talked about Panchayati Raj in the rural areas and which talked about local governance in the urban areas and local decentralization in urban areas. But the overall context of this, Neerja Jayal, a political scientist from Delhi, basically points out that privatization, liberalization, withdrawal of the state from welfare are accompaniments to decentralization. So there is a cautioning which is happening. And in this context, therefore, talking about participation in development, there are certain kinds of aspects to it which we will realize later. So when you talk about community, when you talk about participation, here it can also have the danger of state withdrawing, passing on more responsibilities to the community, or community, the term community itself can be synonymous with withdrawal of the state, and this can have very important repercussions for communities which are poor or which are disadvantaged, right? The second aspect of this is our overall experience with decentralization has really been a very, very mixed one. So in states like Kerala, one is seen that it has initiated really a new pattern of development where there is a whole lot of planning from below, and institutions have emerged in order to incorporate that planning from below. In Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Goa, one basically sees that the state decentralization experience is very, very mixed. But on the other hand, civil society movements have attempted to expand this decentralization space, and by including hitherto excluded sections like women. Just to give an example, Bailanchi Sad in Goa or in Maharashtra, the entire experience of the Mahila Raj Satta Andolan have actually tried to expand the spaces which were envisaged by local decentralization through the 73rd constitutional amendment. So what it has done is basically that at the grassroots level, the politicization has been strengthened, but it really remains like a unfulfilled promise in the case of cities. So we have overall a very mixed kind of experience. What is very interesting again to look at the contradictory dimensions which are emerging as a result of that is that participation in Gram Sabhas and directly participating in a village assembly which is taking a decision is very powerful for local citizens. In Chhattisgarh, Gram Sabhas have taken decisions against projects which they have seen as only causing displacement and taking over their natural resources. They have helped in cases like Goa to assert control over local resources and say that so in Maharashtra, in fact, there is a very interesting slogan which has emerged which declares that आमच्या गावात आम्ही सरकार, Delhi Mumbait आमचे सरकार. What this means is we are the government in our village, and in Delhi and Mumbai it will be our representative government. Now this is a very interesting notion. Self-governance, we are governing ourselves, and that is the kind of promise that these institutionalized forms of participation actually bring in. However, contrary to this, there are studies which say that a bulk of Gram Panchayat funds are actually spent on construction activities, creating an extremely corrupt nexus of politicians, local leaders and contractors. So this spaces that we are creating, remember, participation is never a smooth process. It is always filled with so many contradictions and also challenges. With global civil society similarly, which is an emerging space in the contemporary era, one is seeing there is a mixed experience. On one hand, it has improved the transparency, the accountability of global institutions. It has made them think much more about the human rights agenda, about agendas of social justice and democracy. But on the other hand, in the structures of global civil society itself, there is an opaqueness and inequality, and there is a huge underrepresentation of the global south. Okay? And this again is an emergent contradiction of how participation is happening in the contemporary era. Finally, I think we need to also remember that in the contemporary era, capital has moved to a much more ascendant position. So in some ways, it is also has the power in order to look at this, if we look at this shifting relationship between state, society, capital or market, then capital today is in an extremely ascendant position. So what does that do to the state? What does that do to civil society and society at large, and therefore to forms of participation is something that we need to understand, we need to question, and therefore we look at participation as a constantly evolving, constantly emerging space, form, and ideas for participation have also changed. They always open up new debates. There are new avenues for how does one deliberate, what is that best form which does justice to everyone who is perhaps also unequal, because how does one create that public realm in some way, how does one create, what are those best forms of representation, and the participation raises several questions around that. It also talks about and raises the question of how people at the bottom can actually engage the state and link to the state in an egalitarian manner. How can we think of development as not just a vision of the state and determined by the state, but as a conjoined vision, as a conjoined effort of both state and the people, and how processes can be transparent and accountable. And all of these ideas are at the heart of participation. And seen in this light, one should see that ideas of participation, concepts of participation are actually a search. They are a search into and an exploration of newer forms. So if the context around us is changing, then the forms of participation, spaces of participation, debates around participation are going to necessarily change. For references on this, again several, but you can refer to definitely James Midgley. You can also refer to the text, which will give you then future and further several questions and specific debates are indicated in the text and the references for that. Thank you.